And welcome once more to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. Joining me, Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you again.
Bob, great to see you.
So there's a fight that's still going on between the Senate Intelligence Committee on the Hill and the CIA. A lot of finger pointing both ways, and this all goes back to the U.S. treatment of detainees. Where is this thing going?
Well, what you have is the Senate having drafted a report that is now undergoing a declassification process about the enhanced interrogation process and program that the CIA ran. And a dispute with the CIA over the findings, as well as the challenges, as we've seen in recent days, over accusations as to whether or not the CIA was actually doing things improperly with the computers that were being used by the Senate staff. But ultimately, this is a question about the credibility of the CIA and what they said about the effectiveness of this program. And ultimately, Bob, what we're going to see is out in the open further debate about the enhanced interrogation techniques that were applied by the CIA in the first and early parts of the Bush administration. This debate is still with us, and what's festering here is really at what point we have that open debate with this Senate report.
Leaked details about the report. The report's still classified, we haven't seen it, but leaked details seem to suggest that the CIA misled in great detail the effectiveness of the program, what was gleaned from the program, whether or not actionable intelligence came from that. How important is it that we know what happened there?
Well, I think it's incredibly important for the country to understand sort of the history of what happened, for there to be, in some ways, a reckoning in terms of the decisions that were made around this program, and frankly, whether or not they were ultimately effective and important to understanding the terrorist threats that were unfolding. The CIA has certainly a specific view around this, and you've had ex-CIA officials who've written books now talking about the effectiveness of this program and the types of pieces of intelligence that it gave us, and the ability to sort of cross-reference information based off of what came out of these programs. But what is still at play here is an open debate over these issues. What you've had are these reports that are still classified, the CIA's response, which has been classified. What we have yet to see is all of this out in the open in a way that allows the public to decide what the truth is. And I think the CIA is battling here what it perceives to be some false conclusions based on the Senate report.
What's more at stake here? A judgment as to whether enhanced interrogation was effective, or the larger question of whether the CIA leveled with the American government?
Well, I think there's probably three questions. One goes to sort of the overall morality and policy wisdom of this program itself. And that's at the end of the day is sort of the most important question. In some ways, we've resolved that. President Bush in some ways ended the program in 2003. President Obama ended it completely when he came on board. So in a sense, that's been resolved. But sort of that historical question: was it necessary? Was it right? Should we have done it? That question is still out there. Then you have the question of was it effective? Even if we shouldn't have done it, was it effective?
Yeah, did it work?
Did it work? And that debate is still with us, and that has not been resolved in some ways. And then finally, the more specific question that you raised, which is, was the CIA leveling with folks, not just now, but back when the program was instituted and when it was underway? Because there were reports being given up the chain into CIA leadership, into the White House and elsewhere, talking about the nature of the program and explaining its effectiveness. That affected the way the policymakers thought about the program and whether or not it was going to be continued and defended. All of those issues are at play in this debate, and what's interesting here is you also have intermixed this fight between the Senate and the executive. And what's interesting is the Obama administration in some ways having to defend the CIA for practices that it's been highly critical of.
Right, very interesting. Well, there's all kinds of speculation the report could come out soon. I think some people would like to just kind of have the Band-Aid ripped off. Let's get it over with. Let's get it all on the table.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the assumption is, look, a lot of this is already leaking out. It's going to come out anyway. A lot of this debate has already happened out in the open. As I mentioned, there's been books written about this, lots of legal articles and other debate that's happened around these issues. let's just have it out and see what happens. I think what the CIA is most concerned of, though, is the finality of some of the conclusions in the Senate report, which they think are just not grounded in fact. And the Senate worried about what the CIA has been doing to fidget with their investigation. And so all of that is worthy of intrigue, but also worthy of great discussion.
Another Washington drama.
That's right.
All right, Juan, thanks as always.
Thank you, Bob.
And thanks to you for watching Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr. We will see you next time.